The client seemed terrified, so I ran straight back to the pool area. Dave had managed to contain the snake until I arrived, and when I saw it, I realized why he needed help. This thing was fast and big.
He was one of the most recognizable faces on A&E, a metalhead exterminator in all black leather, taking on snakes, alligators, and massive wasp nests with zero hesitation and zero fear. Billy the Exterminator ran for 6 solid seasons, pulled in millions of loyal viewers, and made William Bretherton a genuine TV personality. Then one day, it was just gone. No finale, no proper goodbye, no explanation, just silence. Fans were told the show was canceled, given no reason why, and left to wonder what happened. So today, we're going through the full story, because the real reason this show ended is a lot more complicated than most people realize. Who was Billy Bretheton, and why did people love him? To understand why the show's ending hit the way it did, you have to understand why it worked so well in the first place. And that starts with Billy himself, because he was genuinely unlike anyone else on television at the time. William "Billy" Bretherton grew up in Benton, Louisiana, and from early on, he didn't fit the mold of what you'd expect from someone in pest control. Billy was into heavy metal, long hair, all black leather, silver jewelry, spikes, dark sunglasses. If you saw him on the street without context, you'd never guess he was heading off to deal with a hornet's nest in someone's attic. But that contrast, the metalhead who was also a trained entomologist, is exactly what made him compelling. He wasn't performing a character. That was genuinely who he was. At 19, he joined the U.S. Air Force, where evaluations flagged a natural aptitude for biology and entomology. He rose to senior airman, got stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, and came out of his service with real, practical pest control training. After leaving the military, he returned to Louisiana and joined Vexcon Animal and Pest Control, his family's business, run by his parents, Big Bill and Donnie, with his brother Ricky also on the team. His first TV exposure came through Discovery Channel's Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe. His personality jumped off the screen, knowledgeable, funny, completely at ease in front of the camera. A&E took notice, and in 2009 launched The Exterminators, which was rebranded as Billy the Exterminator from Season 2 onward. The show found its audience fast. People didn't just watch Billy, they genuinely liked him. And for 6 seasons, that's what kept them coming back. And for a while, it looked like nothing could stop it. But here's the question nobody was asking while the ratings were climbing. Could a show built entirely around one person's real life survive? If that person's real life fell apart? What the show was actually like, and why it worked. It's worth spending a little time on what made the show itself so watchable, because it helps explain the void it left when it disappeared. Each episode of Billy the Exterminator typically followed Billy and his team on multiple pest control calls. The jobs varied wildly, from beehive removals and cockroach infestations to alligator relocations, snake extractions, and everything in between. Louisiana is an interesting environment for this kind of show because the climate and the ecosystem mean you're dealing with creatures that most of the country never encounters. Giant colonies of fire ants, nutria rats in drainage ditches, venomous snakes in residential backyards. The variety was genuinely remarkable, and it never felt manufactured. What set the show apart from other nature or pest-themed programming was the human element. Billy never made the animals the enemy. He consistently explained that most of what he was doing was humane relocation, removing creatures from places where they'd become a problem and putting them somewhere they could survive. He had real respect for the biology behind what he was dealing with, And that came through in how he talked about it on camera. The production itself was aware of a structural quirk in the format. Since they never knew exactly what footage they'd end up using from any given call, Billy and Ricky had a habit of narrating what they were doing in real time, explaining the species, the behavior, the method of removal, so that key information wouldn't get lost regardless of which scenes made the final cut. It was a smart workaround, and it also made the show more educational than it might otherwise have been. The family element was a significant part of the show's appeal. His parents were warm, funny, and supportive. His brother Ricky was his closest collaborator and a skilled exterminator in his own right. Billy's wife Mary also appeared in earlier seasons, though she eventually stepped back from the show, reportedly because she simply wasn't comfortable being on camera, though there were also rumors of behind-the-scenes friction that never got fully addressed publicly. Across 6 seasons, the show never dramatically reinvented itself. It didn't need to. The core formula worked. The audience was loyal, and Billy's personality carried the weight of each episode without strain. By every reasonable measure, Billy the Exterminator was a show that should have continued running for years. So with all of that working in its favor, the audience, the format, the family, the ratings, what could possibly have been strong enough to bring the whole thing down? The arrest that started the unraveling. Then 2012 arrived, and everything started coming apart. That year, Billy and his wife Mary were arrested in Bossier Parish, Louisiana. According to reports, police found the couple in possession of a synthetic substance that was becoming increasingly common at the time as a legal gray area substance, though many states were in the process of banning it. Billy pleaded guilty to the charges relatively quickly. The legal outcome was not particularly severe. He was fined $500 and ordered to perform community service. In terms of legal consequences, it was about as minor as it gets. But legal severity and reputational damage are two very different things, and the arrest hit differently in the context of who Billy was and what the show represented. Reality television, more than almost any other entertainment format, depends on the audience's relationship with the people on screen. It's sold as real life, which means the people in it are held to a standard that fictional characters aren't. When a scripted show's lead actor gets into trouble off-screen, it's awkward. But the character they play can remain untouched. When a reality TV personality gets arrested, the line between the person and the persona collapses entirely. It becomes part of the story, whether anyone wants it to or not. For A&E, the arrest created a branding problem. The network had built Billy up as this lovable, eccentric, family-oriented guy who was passionate about his work and good at it. An arrest, even a minor substance charge, introduces doubt. It complicates the narrative. And networks in this space are not generally in the business of navigating complexity around their talent when they have other options. It's also worth noting the timing. The arrest became public while Billy was still actively associated with the show. It wasn't an old story from before he was famous. It was current, and it ran in local and entertainment news. A&E had to make decisions about how to handle it, and from the outside, it appears they made the quiet decision to step back rather than weather the storm. That said, the arrest alone might not have been enough to end the show. Networks have kept shows on the air through worse scandals. What really finished things was what happened next, within the Bretherton family itself. The arrest was the spark. But was a $500 fine and some community service really enough to kill a 6-season hit show? Or was something much bigger already breaking underneath the surface? The family fallout and the end of VexCon as they knew it. This is the part of the story that doesn't get discussed enough, because it happened largely out of public view. But it's arguably the most important factor in understanding why the show actually ended. and why it ended the way it did, with no official farewell and no clean explanation. Following the arrest and the public attention that came with it, serious tensions emerged within the Bretherton family. The specifics were never fully disclosed. Billy kept that side of things private and was never detailed about it publicly. But the outcome was clear. He parted ways with Vexcon and relocated to Illinois. Not a short drive away, an entirely different region of the country. Hundreds of miles from Benton, Louisiana, from his parents, from his brother, from everything the show was built around. Because, here's the thing, Billy the Exterminator wasn't a concept that could be picked up and transplanted. The whole identity of the series was tied to one specific reality: Billy Bretherton, at Vexcon, in Louisiana, with his family. The moment he walked away from all of that, production had nothing to work with. No location, no supporting cast, no premise. A&E couldn't recast the lead or rebuild what had existed organically for years. Real life had already canceled the show before the network made it official. Ricky tried to keep things going with a YouTube series called Vexcon the Exterminators in 2015, but it only ran 16 episodes and never gained traction. Without Billy as the central personality, the formula simply didn't hold. And there was no farewell, no finale. Season 6 aired, and then there was just silence, which is exactly why people are still searching for answers years later. A&E now had no location, no supporting cast, and no production set up. So what exactly did the network do? And why didn't they fight harder to save one of their own shows? How A&E handled it, and what it says about the network. A&E's handling of the Billy the Exterminator situation tells you a lot about how the network operated during that period, and about how reality TV networks generally handle messy endings. The network made no public statement about why the show was canceled. Viewers were simply told it was over, with no explanation offered. This was a deliberate strategy, not negligence, but a calculated choice to avoid drawing more attention to the circumstances. If A&E had released a statement about Billy's arrest or the family situation at Vexcon, they would have been amplifying a story they wanted to quietly walk away from. Silence was easier. It's also worth considering where A&E was as a network at this point. By 2012 and 2013, the network was in a period of transition. Duck Dynasty had become a phenomenon that dwarfed almost everything else they had, and the network was increasingly focused on that franchise and a handful of other high-performing properties. Billy the Exterminator was a solid performer, but it wasn't their flagship. When the production situation became complicated, there wasn't the same level of institutional investment in fighting to keep it going that there might have been for a higher priority show. This is something that happens in television more than audiences realize. A show doesn't always get canceled because the ratings collapsed or because the network actively decided against it. Sometimes a show ends because the circumstances that made it possible stop existing, and the network simply doesn't work hard enough to recreate them. With Billy the Exterminator, the practical foundation of the show crumbled, and A&E let it fall, rather than trying to rebuild. That decision left a sizable gap in their reality lineup, and arguably left fans of that style of show without a genuine replacement. There have been other pest control reality shows since, but none of them captured the same combination of personality, expertise, and family warmth that made Billy the Exterminator work. The network had moved on, but Billy hadn't given up entirely. So what happened when he finally got the chance to come back? And why didn't it stick? The comeback that almost revived everything. Billy didn't disappear permanently. After a few years out of the spotlight, he got another shot at television, though it came from an unexpected direction. In 2016, Canadian network CMT approached Billy about a new series. The concept was straightforward. Take Billy to Canada, give him pest and animal control jobs in a new environment, and see how his personality translated to a completely different region. The result was Billy Goes North, a 12-episode series that premiered on CMT Canada in 2016. The show was well received by the fans who found it, and it gave Billy a chance to demonstrate that his on-screen presence hadn't dulled in the years he'd been off television. He was still immediately recognizable, still as comfortable in front of the camera as ever. And the format, essentially the same as the original show, worked just as naturally in a Canadian setting as it had in Louisiana. A&E took notice. In 2017, they repackaged Billy Goes North and aired it in the United States as what was presented to some audiences as the 7th and final season of Billy the Exterminator. For fans who had been waiting 5 years for any kind of return, it was a welcome surprise, even if it felt slightly disjointed from where the original series had left off. But that one season was as far as the revival went. After Billy Goes North, Billy stepped away from television again. There were no announcements of additional seasons, no development deals, no indication that a full return to the original format was in the works. He simply faded back out of public view. There are a few possible reasons for that. The gap between the original show and the Canadian revival was significant enough that rebuilding a mainstream American audience from scratch would have required real investment from A&E, and it's not clear the network was willing to make that bet. Billy was also older, and the years between had clearly changed his relationship to the entertainment side of the business. The hunger to be on television, if it had ever been a primary motivator, didn't seem to be driving him at this point. What the Canadian season did prove, though, was that Billy's talent for this kind of television hadn't gone anywhere. The window had closed, but the ability was still there. One Canadian season, one quiet exit, and a reality TV legacy left without a proper ending. But what does the full picture of this story actually tell us? And where is Billy now? Where things stand now, and what the story really means. Billy Breatherton is still in the pest control business. The family feud that drove him out of Vexcon and out of Louisiana has healed over time. The official Vexcon website has listed Billy, Ricky, and Billy's son Bryce as part of the current operation, now based in Illinois. They're still doing the work, still running the business, just without cameras following them around. Bryce has built his own social media presence on TikTok, and Billy makes occasional appearances in his son's content. It's a very different kind of exposure than a weekly A&E series, but it keeps a connection alive between Billy and the audience that grew up watching the show. The comments are always full of people who remember it and are glad to see he's still around. His son Bryce is essentially carrying the torch, a new generation of the same family, the same work. Billy himself has not returned to mainstream television. No new projects, no network deals, no indication a comeback is coming. By all appearances, he's made peace with stepping away from that world. The story of Billy the Exterminator is ultimately about how fragile reality TV can be. The show worked because it was real. Real family, real business, real location, real person. But real things break in ways fictional constructs can't. When the reality behind the show fractured, there was no writing room to fix it, no casting department to replace him, no fictional universe to retreat into. The show was only ever as stable as the life it was documenting. 6 seasons is a real legacy, though. Millions of viewers who still remember it, still search for it, still want to know what happened. That's the mark of a show that actually meant something to the people who watched it. It deserved a better ending. It just never got one. So that's the full story. The real reason Billy the Exterminator ended. It wasn't one single thing. It was a substance arrest that cracked the foundation. A family fallout that removed the entire structural backbone of the show, and a network that decided quietly walking away was easier than fighting to keep it going. Billy himself stepped back, rebuilt his life away from the cameras, and while there was one final chapter up in Canada, the return never fully materialized the way fans had hoped. And honestly, that's probably why people still talk about this show years later. It never got the clean ending fans expected. No emotional goodbye episode. No big reunion special. 1 minute, Billy was wrestling snakes in somebody's backyard. The next minute, the show had basically vanished into thin air like A&E hoped nobody would notice. But people did notice, very much so. If this video gave you some clarity on what happened, or brought back some solid memories of watching the show, go ahead and hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely makes a difference for this channel. Subscribe if you want more deep dives like this one, because we do these regularly, tracking down the real stories behind shows and personalities that left without a proper explanation. And drop a comment below. Did you watch Billy the Exterminator back when it was on? Do you remember when it disappeared and wondering what went wrong? Let me know. I read everything down there, and I'd love to hear what this show meant to you.